All right. Hey, everyone. Please keep yourself muted. We are recording this program now. And so after this presentation, please visit our YouTube channel, hit subscribe and smash that like button and click the bell to get all our new content. That really helps us out. So welcome to another educational and inspiring AAM program. In this experiential workshop, Bob Isaacson, co-founder of Dharma Voices for Animals, will talk about DVA and lead us in a guided meditation designed for animal rights activists. My name is Michelle Granberg. I'm your moderator. I'm a mentor and team member with Animal Activism Mentorship. I'm located in New Jersey, and I've been a vegan and activist for over 6 years. Our mission at AAM is to empower activists to boldly act and equip them with what they need to fight for animal liberation. AAM is here to teach specific tools and lay a strong foundation for activists on which their activism will stand for years to come. We offer a free 3-month mentorship program designed for activists at all levels. We pair experienced activists with aspiring activists. Through one-on-one mentoring, we generate an increased number of effective activists worldwide because we know this movement needs more activists. Additionally, we offer free workshops that train and educate our mentors, mentees, and the public on various aspects of animal rights activism. We have a podcast called the Animal Liberation Hour, and we host large-scale in-person activism events. AAM is proud to be fueled by FARM, the Farmed Animal Rights Movement, one of the oldest AR organizations in the country. If you're interested in applying to become a mentor or mentee or want to get involved or to donate, please visit our website, animalactivismmentorship.com, and follow both AAM and FARM on social media. So let me just admit another. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker. Bob Isaacson was a human rights attorney for 25 years, specializing in defending people against the death penalty. He presented and won a landmark case in the Supreme Court, which limits the power of police to arrest people without sufficient grounds when he was 27. The second youngest attorney in history to appear before the nation's highest court. Bob Isaacson was drawn to the Buddhist teachings on the path to the end of suffering 24 years ago and continues to be inspired. Since he began Buddhist practice, Bob has participated in 25 meditation retreats of 1 month or longer. It did not take Bob long to realize the disconnect between the Buddhist teachings of compassion and non-harming toward all sentient beings and the actual practice of Buddhist teachers and followers who continue to eat animals. Sorry, I got lost there. This disconnect led Bob to join with several friends in 2011 to launch the nonprofit organization, Dharma Voices for Animals. DVA is the only international Buddhist animal advocacy organization in the world. DVA relies on the Buddhist teachings to engage Buddhist centers and communities around the world, especially in Asia, where over 98% of Buddhists live. Yeah. So we will open up for a period of sharing. We're going to open up for Q&A. We're going to have a meditation with Bob after he speaks. He's going to lead us in meditation. So I'm going to pass it over to Bob right now. Go ahead, Bob, and take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate that kind introduction. And welcome, everyone. Hi. There's a few familiar faces. So hi, Matt. I don't see where Matt is now, but he was on a minute ago. Matt Collins in New York. And then Andrea. Hi, Andrea Diaz, who's is DVA's operations director from just across the border. I'm in San Diego County. And Andrea is just across the border in Tijuana, or as we say, TJ. So welcome. And I also see Priya, you're there for. I saw you Sunday on one of our monthly sangha. We have a DVA. Good to see you. And there's probably other folks that I'm not recognizing right now. But welcome to everybody. So I want to start out. So the plan for today is, by the way, I'm in California, so the sun is still out strong. It's a little bit after 4, but we'll be together for almost a couple of hours. So I want to tell you what the plan is. So first I'm going to tell you a bit about, you've already heard about myself. I don't need to talk about myself anymore. But you will hear a bit about Dharma Voices for Animals. And then I'm going to talk to you about my practice of meditation and mindfulness, just give you a little bit of background on that. And then we're going to have some, I think, interesting interactive experiences. So we're going to have plenty of time for you to talk about the trials and tribulations and the really difficult part of being an animal advocate. For example, isolation, sadness, grief, anxiety and fear, anger and rage. So I hope that when I say that, you can recognize that if not all of those things and many, many more, that you've experienced some of those. And this comes from mindfulness, simply knowing what your experience is in the present moment. So we'll talk about that. I'm going to do, actually, I was thinking instead of doing one longer guided meditation, I'll do a few short ones. And that way we can get feedback and I can see where the group wants to go. So I'm going to give you hopefully a few tools that you can use to meditate on your own. That's my goal. And then we'll have a lot of time for, this sounds like a lot, but I've done this before, and we should have some time just for sharing and Q&A and all that. So I'm going to get going. Let me start out with Dharma Voices for Animals. So, as Michelle mentioned, we're the only international Buddhist animal advocacy organization, animal rights organization in the entire world. And I've taken now, I think, 10 trips to Asia. We started out, Patty Brightman, Kim Sturla, David Blatton, and I started DVA, we call ourselves DVA, back in 2011. And we thought that, all 4 of us were in California. There's lots of centers out here. We did it because of the disconnect that Michelle was mentioning, the disconnect between the Buddhist teachings. Do not harm a sentient being, and Buddhists eating animals and eating animal products. So we thought I tried doing this one-on-one with well-known Western Dharma teachers for years. And 2 other friends were doing the same thing, and we were getting nowhere fast. It wasn't working without an organization. Some people were not so polite. Most were very polite and would give me time. I could speak about my own experiences. And at the end of it, they'd say, well, thank you for sharing that. And then nothing ever changed. So we needed an organization. We started DVA. We started in the U.S., in California. After a few years, I realized that most of the Buddhists were not living in California or in the U.S. They're in Asia. Almost 99% of people in the world that identify as Buddhists live in Asia. So I started going to Asia, and then we started projects in 3 Buddhist countries in Asia. By the way, approximately the best estimate of the number of Buddhists in the world is 1 billion. It could be as little as 600 million. It all depends on China. Because in China, many people are not openly identifying with any religion, any spiritual path. So I'm pretty convinced it's close to 1 billion because I'm relying on the higher estimate with China. But in any event, we're in Sri Lanka, just off the coast of southeast India. Sri Lanka is a Buddhist country. There are approximately 16 million Buddhists in Sri Lanka. Our next project was in Vietnam, where 60 million Buddhists live. And then we started just 3 years ago in Thailand, our project, and Thailand has 65 million Buddhists. So each country is completely different, culture is different, Buddhist tradition is different. We work with one of the top 3 monks who's our director in Vietnam. And in Sri Lanka, we have all kinds of personal and political connections there. So we're pretty much a household name in Sri Lanka. So if you're interested about this, go to our website, take a look and get some more information about that. The website is just Dharma, so it's DHARMA, Voices, plural, for, FOR, animals.org. We're also active on Facebook. Andrea, major role in that, and also on Instagram and YouTube. And we have a really, I'm biased. We have an amazing film done by Keegan Kuhn. So Keegan also did What the Health and Cowspiracy, and a couple of those were co-produced. Those 2 were co-produced by Leonardo DiCaprio. And Keegan did our film back in, I think he started on 2012. I won't even tell you how much money we paid him. It's so ridiculous. I think it was came out to 50 cents an hour for that, because we were really small then and we couldn't afford to pay him. So he just basically donated his time and produced a really powerful film. It's been translated into 12 languages, including Chinese, Spanish, and all of the major Asian languages except Japanese. So if anybody speaks Japanese, let me know. If you know somebody, we'd love to get a translation. I've been trying for about 10 years, and when it looks really promising, it always falls through. So anyways, please take a look at our website. That's Dharma Voices for Animals. Take a visit. You can sign up for you can become a member. You just go to join. So it's Dharma Voices for Animals /join. And you can become a member, get our newsletter, which a new one's going out this week. You can find out about everything we're doing around the world. And also you can follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. So I think maybe a good time to see if there's any questions or comments from anybody. Anything that I can tell you or share with you about DVA or anything else at this point. What do you think? Okay. All right. So there'll be plenty of time. I'm going to leave time. I don't see anybody's hand up. If you
Matt
wave,
has his hand up.
is it who?
Matt Collins has his hand up. Maybe.
Matt.
Unmute Matt.
Hey, thanks for doing this, Bob.
Hey, Matt. Oh, there you are.
Hey, I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you very much. I just wanted to add, you're looking for volunteers, right, for the U.S. Centers Project?
Yes.
So maybe there's people interested on the call.
Good. Thank you for mentioning that, Matt, for sure. So we are, and it's Carrie Thompson's our director of U.S. Centers Project, and we're in contact with over 100 centers. We've got over 1,000 in our database. I mean, there's countless centers, and what we need to know about these centers before we can effectively interact with them and ask them to change. Some centers serve everything, hamburgers and chicken. Are you kidding? And others are vegetarian but serve animal products, cheese, eggs, etc. So we try to move the center to the next step. If they're serving animal flesh, we try to move them to vegetarian. If they're serving dairy products or eggs or even honey, we try to move them to vegan. But we need help because it's a lot of work to do and research, and Matt's one of our volunteers. Thanks for doing that, Matt. So if anyone's interested, could you maybe just put that on the chat? Oh, I can also tell you Carrie's email address is pretty easy. So Carrie is just CARRIE at dharmavoicesforanimals.org. That's her email address. So.
That's great. We've got some of the links in the chat as well, Bob. So I think people are.
Beautiful. Thanks, Andrea.
Can reach out.
Okay, good. There it is. All right. So that's DVA, and I may say a few more words later, integrated into our discussion and my teaching as well. So now I want to just talk to you about mindfulness and meditation. I came to, so as Michelle was mentioning, I was a hands-on lawyer. I was a trial lawyer. I did many, many jury cases, jury trials in Chicago and in San Diego. Most of my trial work was defending people against the death penalty. I got about 5 years of experience before I started doing that. I trained people around the country to do the cases, mostly out here in California. I traveled out here so many times from Chicago. I realized I wanted to live out here. The weather is great, except for this year. It's a little bit cool out there in San Diego, but most of the time it's really, really wonderful. And but I really something was missing, and I came to Buddhism, read a book, a beginning book of Buddhism, and I started going to classes and then retreats. So I just want to tell you that this is not, this is all non-sectarian. You don't have to be a Buddhist to be mindful, to meditate or anything like that. It's universal. Nobody owns like a patent on meditation, all religions, spiritual groups, or none of the above. So meditation is completely generic, and that's how I teach. So I teach in the San Diego area. And I have a Sangha, or an ongoing meditation group. We actually had two, and now they've merged because we spend a lot of time on Zoom. And I've been doing that for about 12, maybe 13 years, I think. I teach weekend residential retreats where people come to a center, and I teach. We do sitting and walking meditation, and also I mentor people. I have one-on-one talks every now and then with different people. So that's what I do. I've also taught many places. I was on the board of ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, for many years. I taught several times, and our Vietnamese director was visiting me one time, and so they were surprised to see a really high-ranking Vietnamese monk offer meditation and mindfulness instruction. I've also taught at Mercy for Animals out here in LA, etc. So what we're going to do today is talk. So first of all, what is mindfulness? What is mindfulness? We talk about it. It's a common word now in the language. So anyone see any hands
raise
up?
their hands?
Do you see any hands up?
Does anybody want to give their definition of mindfulness? Elena, go ahead and unmute.
My understanding of mindfulness is presence, awareness. If I were to give some synonyms, that's how I perceive it.
Presence, awareness, good. No, how about this one? Now I've been doing this for a long time. So this encompasses everything that you said. How about knowing our experience in the present moment? So being present, being aware. Awareness is often used as a synonym for mindfulness. Knowing experience in the present moment. So right now, because I'm talking about it, I'm mindful. I forget to be mindful too, even though I've been practicing this for a long time. So right now I'm mindful, so I'm aware that I'm speaking. I can actually feel the words coming out, the vibration and all. I'm aware that I'm seeing myself on the screen. I can hear my voice. I'm aware of hearing, mindfully hearing. And we can do this at any time. The trick is to remember. It's hard. It's hard to remember. Sometimes the word for mindfulness in the Pali language was the first language that the teachings were translated or were written down in. The word is sati, and some people translate it as remembering rather than mindful. We're just remembering. You have to remember to be mindful. So it's a matter of training ourselves. Now, what possible purpose does this have to a group of animal advocates and animal advocate mentors like yourselves? Well, anybody? Like, why is this useful? Why do we even want to talk about mindfulness? Yeah, so Elena.
As activists, we're oftentimes confronted with violence anywhere and everywhere we go, whether it's advertising, seeing it in person at a vigil. Animal advocacy is something that we have to be present, or else that violence can lead to a lot of those emotions you mentioned earlier, immense grief, suffering. And so that's when we can come back to the present moment and alleviate that suffering.
Great. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it. We can, you know, we can't. So first of all, just being a human, just being human, we're going to suffer loss. We're going to suffer not getting what we want, getting what we don't want, and then we got all this extra layer of suffering because we're trying to stand up and advocate for and save the lives of vulnerable beings when so many of them are just being tortured and killed around us. And it can be so isolating. It can be it can lead to so much anxiety and fear. People on the front lines are going into slaughterhouses and factory farms. There's a sadness and grief, judgment, judging others, judging ourselves. We're not doing enough, and on and on and on. It gets accentuated by the work that we're doing. So it's really important, as Elena suggests, it's really important to pay attention to what it is that we're experiencing. So if we're angry and we don't know it, so we're talking to somebody, maybe it's even a family member or around a holiday or some other event, and people. So we have our own food, and maybe we're lucky enough, like one or two other people are eating something other than animal flesh or animal products. And then we get to a discussion. Why this is a waste of time? Why are you doing this? Why don't you help people instead of helping animals? How many times have we heard that, right? So, unless we are aware that we're starting to, in my example, anger is arising, maybe even rage. Well, if we're not aware of that, we're going to react. And then what happens? Is anyone going to listen to what we're saying when we're raising our voice? It's over. And so we don't do that. Doesn't help animals. What helps animals is if we're mindful and we're able to speak from the heart to people, whatever we're doing, whatever form of activism we're taking. So mindfulness gives us space between reaction and action. It's really important. Or as my teacher Guy Armstrong says regarding fear, embrace the feeling, guard the action. Guard against the action, embrace the feeling, and guard against the action. That applies to all of these difficult emotions that arise. So that's why we practice mindfulness. And what about meditation? Why meditate? Anybody? So is, I don't know how to ask this question. So you know what? I won't ask the question. A lot of you have your video turned off. So I'm wondering how many people have meditated and how many people haven't. But let me ask the question anyways. Why meditate? What's the point of meditating? Anybody? So help me out. I'm looking. I don't see any hands up. It's okay. Oh, there. Okay. Yeah, Michelle.
Okay. Many reasons to meditate, but I think in relationship to what we're talking about here, meditation is like the art and practical practice of, being our best self, certainly. And and mindfulness allows us to sit back and more into that seat of witnessing. And that's the other piece, I guess, I add to the mindfulness definition is without judgment.
Yeah.
A period of time without judging, without the critic popping in. Meditation helps us create a baseline of that sort of even platform of self-regulation that we can return to.
Yeah, so that's good. It sounds a lot to me, Michelle, like that's mindfulness. And I think that's the point too. I think they're pointing to that. So another way to say what you just said, which I completely agree with, it's a good summary, is that meditation is mindfulness the way I teach it and the way I practice it with the eyes closed. So you're in a posture, so it's a constant reminder to be mindful. It's hard when you're out in the world, when you're talking to people, when you're driving the car, when you're listening to music, engaging people doing your work. It's hard to remember. It's easier to remember, not easy, but it's easier to remember when you're sitting in a, let's say, in my example, sitting meditation. You can meditate in any of 4 postures: reclining, sitting, walking, or standing. But we're sitting, and we close the eyes. There's some Zen people and some Tibetan traditions keep the eyes open. But you're in this form, you're in this posture that reminds you. And then in my tradition, Theravada Vipassana, we close our eyes. So even though we forget a lot that we're meditating, and the intention is supposed to be mindful, nonetheless, it's easier to remember in the meditation posture than it is when we're out and about in the world. So that's why we meditate. And meditation does lead to peacefulness. Not in the way we want. It's not like the first time we close our eyes and sit that we experience unlimited peacefulness, but that's the path. We're planting the seeds. And it also leads to insight. You get insights into the important characteristics of life, which I'm not going to go into now. It's a bit too much for now. I don't want to. I want to leave time for our guided meditations and feedback on that. So that's what meditation is. It's mindfulness with the eyes closed. And there's different techniques and styles on how to meditate.
There's another hand up, Bob. Do you want
Where?
one
Yeah.
more Yogi Free? You can unmute and
Yeah, whoever has their hand up, please say something. Go ahead.
Namaste. I actually meditate daily. I've been practicing it daily for over a month now, and it's become a habit, which is really awesome. And I do it in the morning so that I make sure that I get it done. And I found that it's definitely an opportunity for us to be in control of the body, to get in control of these transmitting and receiving mechanisms that we're using to navigate the physical realm.
Good. And who's speaking? Just so I can find you on my.
That's me, Yogi Free.
Oh, hi. Okay, great. Thanks. Good. Excellent. Good. And it's great that you're doing that. You're meditating regularly. This is really good. So if you start meditation, see if you can keep it up. So maybe you don't have to do it every day at the beginning, so maybe every other day, but try to meditate at least a couple of minutes each day. It doesn't really matter how long you're doing it. You want to build up habits. So if you start lifting weights to build up the body. So you're not going to pick up the heavy weights and big weights and do 10 sets of 20 10 reps of 20. You're not going to do that. You'll start out with something lighter and not do so much. If you're learning to play a musical instrument, you're going to start out maybe with scales, or start out with something that's easy to get the heart and mind around. So you start out wherever you want, but the consistency is the most important thing with meditation. Absolutely. In a daily practice, if you can do that. If not, try it every other day.
And I didn't start out that way. I actually, like we're participating now, I had started to participate in other webinar meditations.
Uh-huh.
And so that's when I knew I was committed to meditating on those days, right? And then I just, forced myself to get into the habit to do it in the morning, because then I wouldn't forget. And I started out really slow, doing 5 minutes, and now I'm up to 25 minutes, and I do it twice, but I have the limit at 25 minutes each time.
Wonderful. It's wonderful.
It's
Amazing.
amazing.
It's just so keep it going. There's a really well-known translator of the ancient texts into English. His name is Bhikkhu Bodhi. He actually lives in New York City. And he's also a DVA member, and he's in our film. So there's a connection. But what he says is, he's really, really famous. He's without a doubt the foremost Pali canon. It's the original teachings of the Buddha. He's the foremost translator living in the world today. He says there's only 2 things you have to do to proceed on the path. One is to start. The other is to continue. That's all you got to do. The continuing sometimes is the most difficult, but so keep it going. It's a good time to meditate when you feel like meditating, when you don't want to meditate, or when you don't really care one way or the other. Those are all good times to meditate. And don't let the thoughts talk you out of meditation. The thoughts say, you're tired. You've already done enough today. You can meditate tomorrow. Just meditate for a short time. If your plan is to meditate on that day, meditate on that day. And you can cut it short. You can, be kind to yourself. But get yourself in the meditation posture. That's really the way to build up the habit. So any other questions before? I think I've said about what I want to say regarding meditation and the practice. I'm sure other things will come up, but I'm thinking we do some. First of all, are there any other questions or comments before we start meditation? So I'm thinking we'll do, Nancy.
Thanks so much. I'm enjoying this.
You.
I've been meditating since 1969, so for about 54 years, twice a day, 20 minutes, transcendental, whatever. And I find that it makes me very aware of the natural way in which thoughts just flood my mind. And I know it's not just me, it's just like I'm doing the mantra and all of a sudden I'm in Timbuktu and I'm thinking about this and that, and far away from being here now, as Ram Dass said. So then I come back to the mantra and continue, and there I am off again. But the bringing myself back just really makes me aware of how the mind works. And I give it that, like a monkey, I give it the banana, the mantra, to keep it still or to still it a little bit. So it's a dance, it's a choreography of the mind. And I think, a lot of people say, I could never do meditation because, I can't stop my thinking. And of course, that's the way the mind works. We're always, thoughts are always coming in and out, but it's a way of maybe slowing them down or bringing us back to the center of ourselves and the one being that we're all part of. And it's not necessary to not think at all. It's a matter of fact, it's for me, and I think for most people, impossible just to slow it down towards like a non-rippling pond and let the ripples come again and then still it.
So great. So I thank you for saying all that. I'll take another question in just a minute. But I want to make a comment. So very, very important what you said. Thoughts will come, and you're not doing anything wrong. And the point of the instruction is not to try to stop the thoughts. You might try that sometime. It's impossible. Instead, what you do is you try to continue the mindfulness. So you let the thoughts come and they go, not to judge yourself. Everyone thinks. So we're not meditating to stop the thoughts. We're meditating to make peace with our thoughts is one way to say that. And the more mindfulness we can string together, the less that the thoughts will come up. That's the way it works. Not in the first meditation you do, but it takes time. So you've been doing this since '69, you said. So yeah, you notice it. There's less thoughts now in general than before. Yeah, that's the way it works. If you string together the mindfulness, so like one in breath, out breath, another in breath, out breath. After a time, each person is different depending on its causes and conditions. It's called karma. Then eventually concentration arises when the mind becomes still, tranquility. Interest increases, equanimity oftentimes will arise, and that's when insights come, and that's what frees us. That's the basic teaching. So good explanation. There's another hand up by Cordelia. Hi.
Hi. And you kind of touched on this in the beginning. I find myself in such a state of sorrow and rage over animal abuse 99% of my time. And I think part of that is what inspires me to be a better animal activist, and part of it is preventing me from being as good as animal activist as I can be. And I know when you meditate, you're not supposed to go, okay, I want to stop being so rageful. But that is, and my husband Phil and I try to meditate every day, and that's my point.
Yeah, no, so good points. You made several there. So I actually want to say something about that too, if it's okay. So first of all, you're meditating every day. That's great. That's the path, and we can't, so we can't stop the rage. But what we can do, there's really two ways to deal with this, to work with this, to practice with this, if you will. Well, one way is just with mindfulness. As someone mentioned before, mindfulness is not only, actually, there's another, we can add something to it. It's not only knowing our experience in the present moment, but it's knowing our experience in the present moment without judgment. So when there's judging going on, you're not really in the mindfulness place. We could say with compassion. Knowing our experience in the present moment with compassion, or we can say without judgment. So when you notice we're judging, we notice there's not compassion, there's hatred and rage and anger and all that stuff, which we all experience. Notice it. Just know that that's the experience. And sometimes it's helpful. This is like an advanced meditation instruction. Instead of just knowing the experience, it's helpful to have a mental note of the experience. So for example, anger. You're feeling angry. It's hard to be mindful of anger. Anger doesn't want us to be mindful of it. It likes to hide in the corners of the mind, the recesses in the mind. But the mindfulness, you can either just be aware of that experience, know anger when anger arises, know rage when rage arises. I'm using rage as like even a stronger form of anger. Or we could say to ourselves one or two words. We'd say to ourselves, it's a thought, anger, or rage, stronger, getting weaker, mindfulness. We can note our experience. So I don't think this is good instruction if you haven't meditated before. It's a little bit difficult just to meditate. But for those who've been meditating for a while, and there's a Burmese school, that everything has to be noted. If you go on a retreat with some of these masters, that's what they would tell you. But I'm more flexible than that the way I teach it. I'm certainly no Burmese master. That sometimes it's helpful to use a mental note to describe your experience, especially when it's really strong, like it sounds like rage that you're experiencing. Just note it. The second thing to do, and this, I don't know if we'll have time to do it, we'll see, but I'm going to try to reserve at least 5 minutes for a meditation on self-compassion, is to practice what we call the Brahma Viharas. So one of them is loving kindness, the next one is compassion, and then sympathetic joy, being happy when others are happy, and the last one is equanimity. So this is, any one of those four is a great antidote for rage, for fear, for judgment, for self-righteousness, for all of the above, and the ones I haven't mentioned. So I hope that's helpful. And you can't stop it, right? You can't say, okay, that's it, no more rage. Doesn't work. And anyone else? Let's meditate. So what I'm going to do is, we'll see if we have time. I'm going to do at least 2, maybe 3 meditations. So I invite you to find a sitting position. If there's a reason that you can't, it's just really uncomfortable to sit, you might try standing meditation or reclining meditation. If you're doing reclining meditation, be careful not to fall asleep because we're trying to meditate. That's okay. If you fall asleep, you don't lose any points. So a comfortable position would be with the back straight. So I'm sitting in a chair. I often sit on a meditation bench. You can sit on a cushion, legs crossed. You can sit on a couch. But most important is to keep the back straight. So if you can, if there's something, a physical issue that you really cannot sit up straight, that's okay. If you need to lean back or you need to lean forward or one way or the other. But if you can, to sit with your back straight, not rigid but straight. And then to relax if possible. And also the way I teach what I know, what I learn, and I always meditate with my eyes closed, which is the meditation style in Vipassana Theravada Buddhism, eyes closed. But there are others, Zen folks meditate, most of them with their eyes open. So if you're accustomed to sitting with your meditating with your eyes open, go ahead and do that. That's fine. But if you're not, if you're usually sit with your eyes closed, or you have not sat or meditated often, then please close your eyes gently. So the head is resting comfortably on the shoulders. And if the eyes were open, you'd be looking straight ahead. So gently close your eyes, if that's okay. So we just take a moment to come into the present moment. My first instruction is just know there is a body. Feel the body. You might feel the pressure of your body, the weight of the body on a chair, cushion, bench, floor, wherever you're sitting. Know there is a body. And then we can open to sounds. Hear the sound of my voice. Other sounds, maybe in the room or the house or the place, wherever it is, the building. If you're outside, just open to sounds, outside sounds. I think it's pretty cold out in the east. It's not so cold here. So any sound. So hearing is effortless, doesn't require us to do anything. So in meditating, we're looking for a balance between alertness on the one hand and relaxation on the other. You have to do this time. Maybe you're lucky enough that this is your experience right now, alertness and relaxation, a balance between them. Maybe not. Maybe you're feeling, agitated or stressed or striving. It's okay. Just notice that. And maybe you're sleepy. So the relaxation is kind of out of line or not in balance. That's okay. If you're sleepy, know you're sleepy. If you're striving or agitated, know you're striving or agitated. So we're going to practice very simply mindfulness of hearing, or we can say mindfulness of sounds. When things get quiet, there's actually an inner sound. It might be called sound of silence. Sometimes there's a high-pitched noise when things get really, really quiet inside. You might hear that. Right now, probably you're just hearing other sounds. The mind wanders, as we talked about. You're lost in thought. I forgot I was meditating. That's okay. When you realize you've been lost in thought, just come back to the meditation. So we're practicing mindfulness of hearing. Pay attention, if you can, to soft sounds, loud sounds, and sounds in between. Lost in thought, not really knowing you're meditating right now, but then the mindfulness comes back. Let's practice mindfulness of hearing. Don't worry if you get lost in thought. It will happen 10 times, 20 times, 50 times, 100 times each meditation. You're not doing anything wrong. We've trained our mind to not pay attention. So now we sit silently. We're trying to retrain our mind to pay attention. You might notice if you're feeling relaxed or feeling not relaxed, maybe restless. Neither one is better than the other. but just know what the experience is. Just be mindful of the next sound, and the next sound, and then the next sound. Effortlessly practicing mindfulness of hearing. So gently open your eyes. So that's how we end a meditation in the practice, just with 3 rings of the bell. It's a meditation bell that actually was made in Tibet. It sits on a little cushion so that the sound is better. And I do have original sound on, so you should be able to hear the bell okay. So I like feedback. Anybody, whatever your experience was, you liked it, you didn't like it, you were mindful part of the time, couldn't be mindful of hearing, but were mindful of the body, whatever your experience is. And if I can't see you, I guess you can always put your hand up. Then just start talking. So what was it like? First time, how about somebody meditated just now for the first time? I'd like to hear from you. Also like to hear from experience. Yeah, thank you for the comment, Robert. Yeah. Were you able to be mindful of hearing? Did that come naturally? Was it easy to do? Was it a struggle? No, sounds are happening all the time, and yet we don't notice. Well, we notice when somebody's screaming if they're next to us, right? Like we said, it's better to stop eating animals and animal products. And somebody's screaming, so of course we're mindful of that, but we don't really pay much attention to sounds. Even when we go to a concert, you ever notice this? The mind's wandering. We're not even listening to the music some of the time.
Nancy, do you want to unmute? Did you have a comment yet?
Yeah, someone have their hand up or
Yeah,
something?
thank you
Please.
so much. I
Nancy.
appreciated that. Yeah. I'm wondering, I guess it's a question. Awareness, mindfulness, is it always of something, of a sound, of our inner body sensations, of being connected with everything, of breathing?
Yeah. So that question is, I'm going to answer it in the way I think it was intended, and then there's like a hugely different, bigger answer in that would take a long time to talk about. But I think the way you're asking it is, first of all, awareness and mindfulness. The way I'm using awareness, it's synonymous with mindfulness. There is another definition or another way to use the word awareness, which opens up into a completely different realm. And so, not going to talk about that now. But yes, there's always an object. And so the object can keep changing. So if you're doing breath meditation and you're trying to stay with the in breath and stay with the out breath and stay with the next in breath and the next out breath. So that's the object of the meditation, is the breath. We're going to do breath meditation next. But then sometimes we might be between the breaths and we notice something else, or we're just being mindful during the meditation and we're noticing sounds, like in the previous meditation. We're noticing thoughts. Sometimes we can't notice thoughts until we stop thinking, and then we know that we've been thinking in the last second or 2 seconds. So we can notice emotions, we notice happiness, we notice sadness. We can notice body sensations other than the breath. We notice stabbing sensation in the knee or lightness in the shoulders and the hands. So there is, mindfulness does have an object at 99% of the time. Okay, so good. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Anyone to check in on what that was like? What do you think? Andrea?
I just wanted to add like kind of a question. So when I first discovered meditation in 2018, I had a lot of aversion to it. And so I stopped, and I feel like this is maybe a common problem. Could we talk about a couple of the aversions that people experience so that they can kind of get over them and keep going?
Sure. Do you want to start with one? What was it? Aversion is aversion's incredibly important in this practice. So when something is unpleasant or painful, we have aversion to it. That's what we do. We learn over time that trying to push away unpleasant experience actually adds to the unpleasantness. It makes it much, much, much worse. But this is something that we've been doing our entire lives. So it's hard to do that, but we just keep bringing attention to what we do. Is there anything in particular? Any other? Yeah, there's another hand up. But for Andrea, just give you a chance. Is there any? You said different kinds of barriers to the practice.
Or just like sleepiness, doubt, boredom of the practice, thinking it's not going to do anything for you, so you just don't do it again.
Yeah, great. So those are known as the hindrances. A lot of you will know what that is. So sleepiness or dullness is one. Restlessness, almost the other side of the coin. There's another one, doubt. Just you put your finger on that one. It's this is no good. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Meditation's useless. I can't do this anyways. Everyone else on this call is a great meditator except me. That's doubt. That's not true. None of that's true. But it can really be debilitating if you start identifying with the doubt. So good. Now, thank you I hope I answered your question. Michelle had her hand up too.
Yeah, and then also Matt has his hand up. So
Matt. Where's that? Can't see Matt. Where's Matt?
Well, I'll go and then he can go I wanted
Okay.
to add to that because I also teach meditation, and I've been meditating for about 35 years. And I hear the same thing that Andrea was talking about. But also, I think unrealistic expectations is another barrier to entry, or and maybe people sometimes think it's a one and done kind of practice, and people want instant gratification. Sometimes that's part of the unrealistic expectations, or just like you said, the idea that only some people can meditate, or that only gurus can meditate, or only this or only that, only these people. So good thing to sort of remind people that those aren't necessary.
Exactly. And none of that stuff is true. And so we do self-compassion meditation, which I'm going to save for last. I'm going to do one more, and then we'll do compassion. We have time. Time's going well. I think we're right on schedule. It's great. And then we'll talk about judgment. I hope we will, if I can remember to talk about it, or somebody can bring it up about judgment, because that's what it's, the judging mind. It's self-judgment. We're not good enough. We're lacking. If only I was able to do this. If only. And then first of all those thoughts, they're just thoughts. None of that stuff is true. 99% of it is BS. It's just not true.
Go ahead, Matt.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Matt has a question.
Well,
See Matt. Okay, Matt, please.
Just to add on to what Andrea said, for me, the biggest hindrance is just sitting, just starting, just on a daily basis, just sitting. As soon as I start meditating, it's very enjoyable, right? Even if it's challenging, it's enjoyable. It's just starting. And then what I was originally going to say was, I've been meditating for about 10 years. And what that meditation was a couple minutes, and my mind was wandering all over the place. It's just, you really have to stick with it. Your mind's always going to wander. That was all, just a comment.
Good. No, and I like what you said. Yeah, I agree with it. And this, you have to stick with it. That's the thing. Meditate when you want to, meditate when you don't want to, and meditate when you don't care one way or the other. It's always a good time to meditate. I'm going to give you the same advice, same suggestion with regard to self-compassion. And that's part of the greater practice of compassion. We extend compassion to others, but also to ourselves. And thoughts, this is the thing that trips up so many meditators. We think there's something wrong, we're not meditating correctly when thoughts come, you know? So here we're practicing mindfulness of hearing, mindfulness of sounds, if you will. And so how many times does the mind wander for you? Twice? 10 times? 50 times? 100 times in maybe 8 minutes? Whatever it is, that's okay. That's what the mind does until we train the mind. It takes a long time to deprogram the mind, to retrain the mind, if you will, to stay in the present moment. And even experienced meditators. I'm meditating now for, I know the introduction said, well, I think 24, 25 years, actually about 28 years by now. And my mind wanders a lot. It all depends, you know, especially if I've gotten into something with, you know, some difficult situation through my work, Dharma Voices for Animals. You know, I'm thinking about it. I shouldn't have said this, or they shouldn't have said it. Why did they say this? How come they can't change? Don't they understand they're causing harm, terrible harm? Why can't they look at that? And on and on and on. And I'm trying to meditate. So there are ways to work with that, but the mind's going to wander. Or it can be pleasant stuff. Sometimes when the concentration arises, we get some tranquility and equanimity, and things are really good. Then the next thing that happens, the mind starts thinking about, I want to share this. I want to share. I got to tell my best friend. I got to tell my partner about this. And we just think about ways that we can share the good feelings. Meanwhile, we're not mindful. Mindfulness is just being with that experience. So this happens. It'll happen 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 100,000 times. It's okay. This is the way the mind works. So when you notice you've been thinking and you're meditating and you want to be in the present moment, just come back to the present moment. In the last example, mindfulness of hearing, just come back to listening, to hearing itself. Now we're going to do some breath meditation. So let's do that. Again, please find a comfortable position. Sitting, we're doing sitting meditation. If you can't sit comfortably, or you need to lie down. I've done a lot of reclining meditation. Used to be a runner, distance runner. Knee problems, stuff like that. Just could not sit quietly. Then it's okay. Do reclining meditation. But if you can do sitting meditation, or you have don't have anything preventing you from doing that, please do it. So with the back straight but not rigid, the head resting comfortably on the shoulders, eyes looking straight ahead until we close the eyes, unless you're accustomed to meditating with your eyes open. If you are, you should be looking down, not out, for interesting things to look at. You want to try to cut down on the stimuli. So we'll start out as we did before with know there's a body. Know there is a body. So just feel the body. Weight on the chair or the cushion or the bench. You might feel your feet either resting on the floor or resting on each other. Not the feet, but the legs may be resting on each other if you're sitting cross-legged. You might feel the hands, the position of the hands. And I should say something about this. So your hands can rest in many different positions. It's really where it's easiest for you to allow your hands to rest. They might be palms down on your thighs, palms up on your thighs, maybe one hand on top of or inside the other. You might reverse that, or something in between. But notice the hands. We're going to open the sounds, as we did before. You don't have to do anything to hear. You don't have to make yourself hearing. You don't have to go out to hear a sound. Just stay where you are. Allow the mind to just be mindful of sounds. When a sound arises, know that a sound has arisen. Now I invite everyone to notice the breath. Notice the breath wherever it's easiest for you to notice the breath. So just take a moment to pause. Just notice the breath. You notice it in the chest area, stomach area, perhaps the nose, or somewhere in between. Notice or be mindful, or we can say be aware of the breath. I'm going to give you two simple additional instructions. Notice the in-breath, notice the out-breath. So if this is too difficult to, maybe it's you're not able to do this now, maybe you're new to meditation, maybe you've been meditating for a while. So just be mindful of breathing. That's good enough. But if you can, notice the in-breath and notice the out-breath. Notice the next in-breath. Notice the next out-breath. Just like hearing, mindfulness of breathing does not require us to do anything. You don't have to breathe the body will breathe itself. So the instruction for us is just to notice or be mindful of the in-breath and the out-breath. The mind wanders as it will. If the mind hasn't wandered, it's unusual. But it will. Wait another moment or two, the mind will wander. There's nothing you can do when you're lost in thought. The mindfulness is gone. But mindfulness magically returns. When the mindfulness returns, and you know you've been lost in thought, no reason to beat yourself up, no reason to be judgmental. It's what happens. Just come back to the breath. When you come back to the breath, notice the in-breath and the out-breath. Mind wanders again, maybe 10 times, maybe 20 times. Doesn't matter. Just come back to the breath when you realize you have been lost in thought. So feel the breath. Know what the breath feels like. Is it smooth? Is it bumpy? Pleasant? Unpleasant? Neutral? Are you breathing deeply or shallow or shallowy? There's probably no such word. In a shallow way. Just allow the breath to be felt. Now, we don't pay much attention to our breath, but it's what keeps us alive. It's always there. That's why many meditations are focused on the breath. Each breath is different. Each in-breath is different from each other in-breath. Same with the out-breath. It's unique, like snowflakes. Can you be interested in the breath? One more instruction. Notice if the in-breath is long or short, and notice if the out-breath is long or short. Neither is better than the other, but it's a way to keep the interest going. So noticing in-breath, long or short, out-breath, long or short. The next in-breath, the next out-breath. Mind wanders, gently come back to the breath. That's the meditation. If you've been lost in thought, no problem. Just come back to the breath. In breath and out breath. Again, open your eyes gently. So I'm looking for feedback, for your experiences. If you've never meditated before, if you're an experienced meditator, what was that like? What did you notice? What was your experience?
I know that Elena had her hand up before. Elena, do you still have a comment or a question? You can unmute or no, or
Mhm.
not? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering and considering something what we were discussing before, but also related to the meditation.
Huh?
And as you were giving the instructions, and you mentioned notice if the breath is bumpy or smooth, and using these adjectives to describe it. It made me realize, yes, I do that, and I give myself permission to be aware of when I recognize those adjectives while I'm meditating. And I realized, because I've found it easier to start meditating, but previously I didn't really have space for inquiry around my meditation experience, what emotions might arise that I wasn't previously considering, and having space for that self-compassion, especially to not judge whatever emotions do come up, has been pretty shifting for me with this practice in particular.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. So you have permission, and, and if the instructor or whoever it is that you're getting meditation experiences or instructions from suggest anything else, they don't know what they're talking about. The whole point of meditation is to allow experience to happen, and so we don't have to make the experience happen. We you know, we have certain things we do during the meditation, like opening the sounds, opening the breath, and we're going to do compassion next. But then within that framework, stuff comes up. You know, it doesn't stop because we're meditating. And I mean everything. And eventually, what we want to do is to welcome everything that comes, the good, the bad, the pleasant, the unpleasant, the painful, I guess pleasant, painful, and unpleasant are the ways that we describe it, or neutral. A lot of things. Boredom. Some people are very afraid of boredom. They want to get bored. But boredom comes up. When it comes up, eventually we welcome it. When it comes up, if it's unpleasant or painful, we tend to push it away. If it's pleasant, we tend to reach for it, hold on to it, grasp it, and all. And we learn that we don't have to do that. We just experience things. So when we're in this place, we can just be mindful with compassion for ourselves. Then we're supporting and nurturing ourselves. We're allowing this really important part of mindfulness, which I have not mentioned, is purification. So what happens is when we're meditating, especially happens when we're doing practice like compassion. So stuff will come up. Sometimes self-hatred will come up. Like, oh, what is this? I'm trying to do compassion for myself. And all I can think about is like all the ways I've screwed up and not done enough, not been good enough, and on and on and on. So, but that when it comes up, it actually can be purified by the meditation. So eventually we can welcome these difficult thoughts and difficult emotions because they get purified by the practice. So, anyways, thanks for sharing that. Everything is okay. I mean, everything that happens when we're sitting there, and everything will happen eventually. We feel emotions, then, oh, I'm feeling too emotional. We don't feel emotions. What's the matter with me? Everyone else is feeling them. Don't worry. It all comes. If you just keep meditating, it'll all come up, and we learn to be to be present with whatever it is, the difficult and with the easy. Who else? Thanks for that. Anyone else? Nancy, I'm just going to wait 1 second, just see if there's anyone else. I really do appreciate you sharing. Anyone else want to share or check in on the meditation? Nancy.
I think the breath is pretty powerful. I find when I'm meditating that when I become aware of my breath, sometimes I'll take what I call like a meditative breath, which is like really my breath takes a breath. So it's like like kind of like, it's like a deeper breath. And it happens during my meditations, like once, sometimes twice. This time it was almost like every other breath was like, like a release.
Beautiful. So that feels good, doesn't it?
It feels really good. I just wanted to add one more thing. I'm dealing with an addictive pattern of compulsive overeating. And what I've been working on is, instead of this rushed meal where I'm just quickly digging in while I'm trying to prepare it and no mindfulness, and watching some program or listening to like a repeat of this program, whatever. So there's even less mindfulness. I've just decided to just prepare my meal, take it to a different room and clean up, take it to a different room and just sit with my meal and eat with mindfulness.
Yeah.
And what I find is that, my thoughts start, look at my room over there and look at that. And why don't I do that part of the room? And, like all these thoughts come in. And then I realize the mindfulness part is coming back to what I'm putting in my mouth, actually tasting it, experiencing it. So there's an awareness of taste and texture and appreciating it and enjoying it. So it's sort of like a meditation on food or eating.
Yeah, exactly. So if you go on, and you may have been on retreats, so the instruction is be as mindful as you can all day long. So that includes showering, shampooing the hair, brushing the teeth, and also eating. So it's a lot easier if you're eating in silence to be mindful. So try this sometime. If you're by yourself and you're eating a meal, and you're in a situation, in a place where you can where you could just eat and not have to do anything else. Just try it. So just don't do anything else. Don't distract yourself. Don't read a newspaper. Don't listen to music. Just eat and pay attention to you use your fork and you make contact with the food. Feel that. Bring it up to your mouth. Start chewing on it. Taste the food. Notice when the taste starts lessening, which it will after 2, 3, 4 movements of chewing it. And then notice the urge to take another bite. Just pay attention to all that. And eating takes on a whole other dimension. Whether you have issues around eating or you don't have issues around eating, just be mindful. Let's do a compassion meditation. So I invite everyone to, and we'll have a Q&A and check-ins at the end. But I do want to do this. I want to leave some time for this. So as I mentioned, there are 4. I'm just going to talk for a minute. So as I do, please take a meditation posture that we've been talking about, with the back straight but not rigid, looking straight ahead. Relax the shoulders, and just let your hands rest comfortably on each other or on your legs, upper legs usually, and this is our position. And then I just want to give you a brief introduction of what we're doing. So there are four so-called four Brahma Viharas. The Tibetans call these four immeasurables, and one is loving kindness, friendliness. The one we're going to do now is compassion, which compassion means in the way that that we're talking about it now. It means being present for suffering. So it may be being present for our own suffering. So we're going to practice self-compassion, or it may mean, being present for the suffering of others. So, without being overwhelmed. If you get overwhelmed, then you could do another practice. But so we can practice compassion for animals, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. But the point of this is not to be overwhelmed, but just to express this open heart. So that's what compassion is, and classically it's done with one phrase. So in this meditation, it's different than the other two meditations we did with sounds and with the breath, because now we're going to say a phrase. We're going to say one phrase. So I'm going to give you two ways to do the practice. And the first is, no one deserves compassion and your love more than you do. And I'm also speaking about myself. So if you have this thought, why am I doing it for myself when so many animals are suffering and I can't do enough to alleviate their suffering? You're so much more effective when you're coming from this place of self-compassion and self-acceptance, which is really hard. It's hard for us to do that. We're planting the seeds. This is what we're doing, planting the seeds of self-compassion. So I'd like you to say to yourself this phrase. Just repeat it to yourself. It comes in the way of a thought. May I be free from suffering. May I be free from suffering. So you're going to think that to yourself. One time, and again, and again. May I be free from suffering. Say that to yourself. Thought comes up, what am I doing compassion for myself? I don't need it as much as fill in the blank. We all need self-compassion. May I be free from suffering. It's hard to be compassionate for others if we're not compassionate for ourselves. So just keep repeating that phrase. May I be free from suffering. At whatever pace you want. If you can let the mindfulness rest in the heart center, that's great. But if you can't, just say the phrase. The mind wanders, come back to the phrase. May I be free from suffering. This practice leads to concentration, which leads to insight. Opens the heart. It also purifies, as I mentioned before. Sometimes when we do this meditation, self-hatred comes up, or self-judgment, regret about things we did. When those emotions come up, we do just keep saying the phrase. Over a period of time, these difficult emotions become purified. Less of a problem. May I be free from suffering. May I be free from suffering. No one deserves your compassion more than yourself. May I be free from suffering. So this is one way to do the practice of compassion, specifically self-compassion. And I'm going to give you another way to do this. So the phrase that I use, the second way I do compassion practice, is may I hold this suffering with compassion. May I hold this suffering with compassion. So you could say that to yourself, if you will. hold the suffering with compassion. No one deserves your compassion more than yourself. May I hold this suffering with compassion. If you're lost in thought, don't even remember that you're meditating, don't remember you're on a Zoom call, it's okay. It happens. We keep getting lost in thought. Just come back to the phrase. May I hold this suffering with compassion. Now let's refine this a little bit. Okay, so the next step is, may I hold this anxiety with compassion. May I hold this anxiety with compassion. May I hold this anger with compassion. May I hold this anger with compassion. May I hold this self-judgment with compassion. May I hold this fear with compassion. May I hold this loneliness with compassion. May I hold this sadness with compassion. May I hold this despair with compassion. Some of the common emotions that we experience, especially as animal advocates, animal activists. May I hold this restlessness with compassion. May I hold this frustration with compassion. May I hold this confusion with compassion. May I hold this rage with compassion. May I hold this impatience with compassion. And you can see, you can put in there any emotion, any state of mind that you experience or that's problematic for you. You can use that as the entire meditation. Or if you prefer, may I be free from suffering. Very simple. It's said that compassion is the quivering of the heart in response to suffering. May I be free from suffering. So how was that? What was your experience? Yeah, so a couple thumbs up. Maybe it's a struggle. You know, sometimes when you do this, it's the exact opposite of what you expect. So somebody, I think Michelle mentioned about expectations. So it'd be really nice if we could leave our expectations at the door when we meditate, but it's not always possible. So expectations kind of put a bad color on things. It kind of, in a way, kind of poisons the experience. So we get what we want, what we're expecting. Okay, I got what I wanted, and if we don't, so there's it for the frustration. But the important thing is to keep doing the practice. I hope that you had some connection to this enough that you want to do this some more. There's nothing more powerful, especially for animal advocates, for animal activists. What's more powerful than this? You know, we suffer a lot. We're able to see the suffering of animals. A lot of people can't see it. They don't want to see it, or they can't. They just not there. It's not available. So we see it, and the suffering can be overwhelming. That's why this practice is so important. So what do you think? So I saw, okay, Brian and then Michelle. Brian, hi.
Hi, thank you so much for this. So I wanted to ask you about, so in terms of the wording, because like the loving kindness meditation that I've like practiced has obviously elements of like, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering. Do you think, have you found in like your meditation practice and like your loving kindness meditation practice that like do like these words matter? Like, is it better to emphasize to being free of suffering or emphasizing like the being happy part?
Yeah, so good question. So usually that's called metta or loving kindness, as you said. And this is called karuna, that's the Pali word, or compassion. Here's the good news. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It does, as long as you're doing one of these practices, it really doesn't matter. And there, the loving kindness has this flavor to it of, may I be healthy, peaceful, safe, and happy. It has a flavor to it of compassion, but it is a bit different. That's just friendliness, wishing well. It's not romantic love or anything of the sort, but it's just wishing someone well, including ourselves. So if you do the loving kindness meditation, and when you do it, I should say, include yourself. Don't forget that. The way it's done classically is first you start out with someone that's like a benefactor, somebody really helps you out, and then the next is a friend, and then you come to yourself. You can start out with yourself. Some people can't, they really struggle with either loving kindness or compassion for themselves, and so guess what? That's the most important time to do it, is when you're struggling with it. So it doesn't matter. Both of those practices open the heart. Both of those practices purify difficult emotions and states of mind. And both of those practices lead to concentration. So it's good. You do both. Try both. And see if you can see the difference in the flavor. It's not important to see that, but it's kind of interesting to see that. And they're different, but they're very close. They're like parallel. Sometimes they kind of connect, but yeah, good. Thanks for the question, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. And then Michelle, I think Michelle, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is a little off the topic, not off topic, but back to Buddhism in general and mindfulness. And we can go back to meditation too. But what's coming to mind in terms of connecting the dots between mindfulness and activism, what would you suggest if we're doing outreach, like when we take the footage and show it to passersby, cube style, and we may be doing outreach anywhere really, not just then, and someone identifies as Buddhist, but they're not vegan, and veganism being defined as just abstaining, obviously, from all animal harming in every way that's possible and probable. Would there be a simple phrase that, I mean, I know there's no perfect thing to say, but do you have anything like a simple phrase that we might say to them if they're not, to help them connect the dots, if we're just having a kind of short conversation, like these are sentient beings, or what did the Buddha teach, or, just reminding them about ahimsa, or living a non-harming, non-violent lifestyle? Like, what would you say? And then another thing I was thinking in terms of just being with animals directly, because often we do bearing witness, we do vigils with animals on the slaughter, bound for slaughter on the trucks. And it's an exercise in being with them in their last moments, and it's not about us, but just sort of witnessing that they exist and giving compassion in their last moments. It's so transferable, everything what we're talking about. And I just always say, let's just be present. And that's just another great way to connect the dots between a meditation practice of mindfulness and presence and being with the animals, maybe even in the sanctuaries or maybe on those trucks. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, well,
All
I mean,
that.
that's what we do, and I don't have a short answer for that. So I'm just to say a few things, but it's a really important question. I mean, what Dharma Voices for Animals does is we interact with Buddhist communities, with Buddhist governments, with Buddhist people around the world, or you could say Dharma in the U.S. Most people don't say they're Buddhists; they say they practice the Dharma or whatever. It doesn't matter. But if the Buddhist teachings, or in general, of course, anybody's teachings, but we concentrate on the almost 1 billion Buddhists in the world. It's really hard. See, what people that eat animals, and like the monks in Thailand, we have a huge project. We've been to, I think, 65 centers now in Thailand, either teaching cooking to the kitchen staff, plant-based cooking, or talking to the monks. The head of our project, Coach Bank, has a PhD from the top university in Asia in public health. So he's pretty qualified to talk about this. And we don't approach it from compassion. They do not want to hear from a guy in California, I live in California, about that they're not compassionate enough. So we just go a different way. I was beating my head against the wall for years in Thailand. We talked to them about their health. The Thai monks, there's 300,000 of them, are very unhealthy, much more unhealthy than the general population in Thailand. So we just talked to them about health, and what we're trying to do is move them away from this pork and eggs. They're older ones are fat and they got diabetes, and we're concerned about your health. I want to turn to this. The discussion about compassion is really difficult. We started out thinking that would be our path to open the hearts and change the habits of people, but it's really hard to do that. Some people you can have discussion with, but then of course the important thing is not to come from a place of superiority or judgment. How hard is that? I mean, it's really hard, especially talking to somebody who takes a precept, a vow to not harm. But see, what Buddhists will say, the ones that are eating animals and the ones that are eating animal products, what they'll say is that I didn't kill the animal, but I wrote an article 3-4 years ago. If you go to our website, you can see it from the home page, and it's the name of so the website is just Dharma Voices for Animals.org, and the name of the article is Friends, Not Food. And it was published in Lion's Roar. And so I was only given I think 1,000 words or something like that. And so what I said, I took the major myths around, or the major rationalizations that Buddhists use to avoid responsibility for eating animals. And the main one is, I didn't kill the animal. So the precept prevents a Buddhist from killing an animal. Yeah, but you're so much a part of that. When you're biting into, chewing, and swallowing an animal's body, you're part of the process. And so that but it's great to talk about that amongst ourselves, but it's really hard to deliver this message. I keep trying and I put it out there. I don't know how many people are changing their mind because of that. But when we talk to people about the beauty of plant-based food, when we talk to people about how all animals are different and distinctive, when they go, as your suggestion, to animal shelters or to have their own dog, to draw the parallel between a dog wants to live just like a chicken wants to live. So all animals, and the loving kindness meditation that Brian was talking about is also meant to be shared with everyone, all sentient beings, all beings that can feel pain on Earth, in the universe. And so we wish them well, but at the same time, we eat them because we like their taste. So I don't know, to answer your question, but there's so much in the Buddhist teachings, and we have on our website, our film by Keegan Kuhn is all about the reason Buddhists should not be eating animal products or animals, let alone animal products. I mean, it's all about that. And we use the teachings. We have monks. We have people from different cultures, from different traditions that are interviewed, and so take a look at that. That'll answer the question about what you can say to Buddhists. Yeah. But thanks for the question. It's a question I've been thinking about, not only for the 12 years that I've been with DVA, so I've been the only president of DVA from the beginning, but also I was doing this for years before, just one, as I mentioned at the beginning, one-on-one with Western teachers.
Yeah.
And really getting nowhere fast until we started DVA, and now people are listening to us. We're changing the hearts and minds and the habits of people in large quantities around the world. Largely, have all kinds of anecdotal evidence of that, and sometimes it's seeing the shocking reality of what happens to animals on factory farms and slaughterhouses. That could be really effective. In Sri Lanka, when we go to Sri Lanka, first time I was there was 2015. It's a devout Buddhist country, 22 million people, 16 million Buddhists in the country. You can listen to the chants, the refuges, 3 refuges on the radio all the time. And we went to a place and we had some graphic content. I didn't choose this, but my Sri Lankan colleagues did, and there were little children in the front row, maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I said, I don't think we want to show this, and they said, no, this is okay. This is Sri Lanka, and the little kids were watching. So we have to be aware of the cultural background and backdrop for what we're doing. But seeing those films, anybody that could watch those films, that sometimes changes people immediately. So there's all these different approaches that work. I don't have a blueprint on what works best, but in Thailand, I can tell you we're leading first with health with the monks. If we can change the habits of the monks and move them away from this kind of just taking all these animal products and animal flesh and eating it in ridiculous amounts, the followers who provide the food will change their habits also, and we're talking directly to the followers now. So we're having extreme effect on what's going on in Thailand, but it's going to take a while. We also need your help. So come to our website, volunteer as Matthew does, Matthew Collins, and or make a donation to us if that is possible for you, and support us in other ways. Become a member. Come to our website, and it's the drop-down menu is Join DVA. That's the drop-down menu. Just it's simple. Then you'll get our newsletter. We have one coming out this week with amazing successes that we've had around the world, because we can talk to Buddhists on their own terms. We talk to them about what the teachings actually say, and about this sometimes unintentional but indirect harm that we're causing people, that we're causing animals, and it's yeah.
Well, thank
So,
you.
anyways, long answer to a short question.
Such a great resource your organization is. So we're going to wrap up shortly then, but so we'll have one last question from Elena, and also she shared in the chat a link to Pax Fauna. I just interviewed Aiden. Also, he did a workshop through AAM recently, and really wonderful research on some of the newest research on the best ways to talk to people and what their non-vegans really need to hear that might be more effective than what we're already saying to them. So Elena, go ahead and ask your question or comment, and then we're going to wrap up after that.
I just wanted to highlight one of the key recommendations that ties into exactly what you've been bringing up, Bob, and one of the key recommendations being empathy. And I think when we tune back into our present self and we engage mindfully with others, and we have that presence with us, then we can understand someone's need in the moment. And I think nonviolent communication ties into this as well. And just having that awareness of not only expanding our vocabulary with feelings and needs, but also intuitively, the more we practice, the more we can recognize, well, this person is seeking a sense of belonging, perhaps, in their community, and being able to hear and understand that and voice it for them, I think is rather a shifting move that I've recognized that I did not have previously when I was doing public outreach and grassroots organizing. And then just speaking and asking, are you willing to hear what I value, my beliefs around this concern, and then expressing my own feelings and needs. And that shift, I think, really ties into what Pax Fauna has found as perhaps a way to connect with others, even if their actions aren't aligning with their values in that moment, even though their values align with our own. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Nice. Very nice sharing, everyone. Bob, do you have any just sort of final words, maybe a final message of hope that you can, I like to always ask, can you end us on a lovely message of hope?
Yeah, so so on the individual level, everyone, it is said, it's not clear about animals in the animal kingdom, but every human is fully equipped to transcend suffering in their lives. So that's the power of a mindfulness and meditation practice. As to my work as an animal activist, I mean, DVA is what we call our organization. We've had amazing growth, especially in the last few years. And just in Sri Lanka, we're a household name. And I go to my hotel. I stayed in the same hotel when I go there. And during COVID times, I was fully masked, and like everyone recognized me. Yeah, and what we released a recipe book, 10,000 copies, which we gave no cost to the temples. There's 8,000 Buddhist temples in the island nation of Sri Lanka. And then Thailand was turning it around. In Vietnam, our director is one of the top 3 monks in the entire country, and runs the most prestigious temple. And he just created a kitchen for us. They're finishing the floor on it. And we will have a place where we can do at the Phat Phan Temple in Hanoi, Vietnam, where we can teach vegan cooking to people. So there's like finding out the reason why people are resisting our message. And in these 3 countries, one of the most common reason is people don't know where to get vegan food. And they try it. And they might even be convinced more than Americans are about the value, the health value of eating a whole food, plant-based diet. But they don't know how to cook. It's actually not very hard at all. You just leave stuff out most of the time. But we're offering cooking classes at the probably the most well-known temple in all of Vietnam. And I'm filled with hope and optimism that we can make a difference. That this is all we can do. We can't stop people from eating animals tomorrow. It can't happen. But we can do our parts, and all of you are doing your part. That's where you're showing up, take care of yourself, and take care of yourself to help yourself. That's enough. But also take care of yourself so you can help animals.
Beautiful.
Thank you I really enjoyed this.
Beautiful words. Beautiful words. Thank you, Bob. If everyone has just another moment or two, I just want to end with a few quick AAM announcements. more good stuff going on. So we have upcoming workshops this Thursday, March 2nd. We have resistance and repression, how the government targets social movements and how we can fight back. That's with attorney Brad Thompson. On Thursday, March 30th, we have anthropomorphism as activism with Karen Davis of United Poultry Concern. On April 6th, we have dominionism and domestication, the history of animal exploitation with author Jim Mason, who co-authored a couple of books with Peter Singer. And again, please check out our previous workshops on our YouTube channel. They're all archived there. You can binge watch them. And while you're there, please subscribe. Again, that really helps us out. Also, I'd like to announce our 2023 live events. The AAM Washington, D.C. Week of Action is taking place very soon on March 14th through the 20th. The Colorado Convergence is taking place in and around Denver. The dates are June 24th through July 1st, 2023. And the Ohio Occurrence is being held September 1st through the 3rd in and around Cincinnati. And we have another one planned coming up in Portland, Oregon. So we've got lots of live in-person multi-day activism events in 2023. You are all welcome to join us. There's no experience required, but registration is required. So you'll find the events on our Facebook page and website, or you can reach out to me or any AAM mentor. Again, my name is Michelle Granberg, so you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram. And that wraps up another AAM workshop. Thank you, Bob, for your time. And
Michelle, can I just mention one more thing? I forgot. So we have a animal advocate sangha the last Sunday of every month. Dharma Voices for Animals. It's on it's on Zoom. And if you go to our website, you can find out information about that. And a week from Saturday, Andrea. So we have a speaker series. And Andrea Diaz, who's right here, is our featured speaker. I'm going to be interviewing her about frontline workers, slaughterhouses, and factory farms, and how she came to Dharma Voices for Animals, and her really amazingly interesting story. So that's a week from Saturday, which is the 11th, March 11th. And again, you can get information about that from our website.
Well, if Andrea is still on the call, if you guys could put, one of you or both of you could put, again, your website in the chat. Yeah. And if there is a link to that talk, that interview online, please put that in there as well, or folks can, however other ways that people can find you. I know you mentioned you're on Instagram and all that, but we want to wrap up. Yeah. So, and if anybody else wants to share their handles in the chat, of course, feel free to do that. So thank all of you again for being here and the tireless work that you're doing for animals. If you're interested in becoming a mentor or mentee with AAM, or you want to get more involved or to donate, visit animalactivismmentorship.com. Consider being a patron by finding AAM on Patreon if you'd like to donate. Also, if you're not already on our email newsletter list, feel free to drop your email in the chat and I'll add you to our newsletter list so you'll always be up to date on AAM happenings. That's it. Thank you, folks, so much. Until next time. Thank you. Stay strong and live vegan, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody.